Ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday. What's today's date, David? The 25th?
And yeah,
Yeah, it's 25th of October. I'm all discombobulated because I am not in my normal South Jersey household. But welcome to Material Issues. I'm still on the East Coast, but I'm Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records, broadcasting live from Disney World, Epcot, and I'm in Morocco land, sitting at a nice table in a little place called the Spice Road Table. I just had a little lamb kebabs and enjoying my time here. But as always, over on the West Coast, it's actually afternoon. So good afternoon, my good friend, Mr. David Bash, president of the International Pop Overthrow Festival. We've got some great guests. We've got an extra special guest host tonight coming on, David, because I'm going to leave the party in about half an hour just because of timing issues here at Epcot. But you'll continue on. But how you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm also not in my comfort zone because my image is on the left of you. Normally, it's on the right of you. So
How is that possible?
there we go. You switched it over. I feel so much better now.
See, now you
Um,
can carry on. Now you can carry on.
I know. I would have. It would have been all over. Goodbye, cruel
And,
world. Ah,
and if everybody hears noise in the background, it's just wonderful Moroccan waiters here having a good time with all their customers. So as you can see, I've got all the. I'm having a good time with my daughters in Disney, Disney World, Animal Kingdom, Universal Studios, all the fun stuff down here. So nice little vacation with my girls.
I'm glad you're having a great time. It's been rather uneventful around here, which is kind of the way I like it pre-IPO. Um, we have a pretty cool announcement to make. I'm not going to reveal the whole thing, but at IPO New York, we added a band called the Malibus, who many of you may know. It features John Zembetti and Walter Egan, the man
Yep.
of Magnet and Steel fame. And they've played IPO in various places. And I heard from John recently saying, we're going to be in New York. Can you fit us in? So we did fit them in on Wednesday, November 9th. Good evening, Tim. We fit them in on Wednesday, November 9th at 11:15. Good morning, Andy. But the cool thing is, and I didn't realize this, but John Zambetti is dating a very, very famous person, rather iconic in the world of movies and TV, and she will be a guest vocalist on their final song of the night. And I'm not going to tell you who it is just yet, but I will say this: she was a Bond girl, and she's not
Oh,
married to Ringo Starr. So
wow!
we'll just leave it at that.
And
But
she can sing, and she can sing.
apparently, she can sing well enough to be their background vocalist. I don't know that she's known as a singer, although she may be in certain
Wow!
circles. I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, if you figure it out, don't say the name. But I will be announcing it later, and it's going to be cool. It's somebody I've certainly wanted to meet for a while.
Yeah.
Um,
How many times do you get a Bond girl on stage at IPO?
well, actually, that's I the well, part of the reason I want to meet her is because I had a real crush on her from another film that she did.
Oh,
Um,
wow!
so yeah, she's a little bit older than I am, but yeah, back in the day, I saw her in another film, and it was like, wow, oh my God, she's so beautiful. Still looks really good now. So anyway, that'll be fun. Like I said, I'll reveal more about that a little bit later. But so yeah, everything else is all set. Looking forward to New York, to Boston, to Toronto in
Hmm.
November. Has our guest arrived yet?
No, he's not made it into the queue yet. He may be having some troubles from down under, because it is tomorrow,
It
and
is
the whole
possible.
space time continuum can throw people off. So
Yeah,
we'll
he's aware. He's aware of the link to get into our studio, but now I
as soon
see.
as I see him pop up, I'll let you know that our guest has arrived in the queue, and
All
then
right,
we'll bring him on. But
I'll
up
raise.
until that point,
I'll go to full screen again where I can't see if somebody shows up. We also have, as Mark will only be able to be here for a half hour, we have our usual fill-in host slash power pop expert slash author slash a lot of different things slash tires.
Slash
Because
tires.
he's been known to do that every now and then. No, I'm
That's
kidding.
right.
Mr. John Borak will be joining us in about a half hour or so, maybe a little less. And it'll be, it's certainly apropos because he knows a hell of a lot about our guest and the various bands that he's been in and the records that he's released. But yeah, I don't know. We're not sure exactly what happened. He may be having some technical difficulties. Like you said, back, in Australia, computers are backward. So
yeah, exactly. Just like
the way it works is they stay on all the time. You have to turn it off when you want to get online. It's just it's a little bit different.
The thing is, it's almost summer vacation in Australia, right?
Well, no, it's the end of summer here, so it should be. Yeah, well, what is it then? It's
I guess it would be spring. It would be spring.
Spring, right?
Spring, yeah. Wow, that's a conundrum. That's hard to process, but yeah, they're coming towards summer as we start coming towards winter.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, it's 8 a.m. there right now, so not sure.
But you and I were talking earlier. We're going to Dom. Is that something heavy? Yeah.
What'd you say?
No, I was reading John's comment.
Oh,
funny. Yeah,
he's tried to get on one time and two times, and he can't, so he's devastated. I assume that's what's going on.
Nah, it's all good. But we had discussed before that the show started, and you'll talk about it later on. But man, November has filled up quickly with a lot of great guests. Just an FYI, David, Dom has checked in. Dom's in the queue. Dom, you can hear us, but we don't hear and see you yet because we're going to bring you up onto the air live in a moment. So just hang out while Dave does a wonderful
Dom, nod your head in acknowledgement. I'm not sure he's hearing us. Dom, can you hear us? Oh, you know what? I think he's a little frozen. Are you seeing?
Well, no, because it's spring in Australia. He should not be frozen.
Huh. No, I'm looking and I don't see any movement.
He's staring at
Tom, I don't know if you hear us, but on our end, you're frozen.
Yeah, go back out and come back in, Dom, if you hear us. Try to reset the connection.
Not well. Okay.
I guess he heard that because he went back out to come back in. Yeah, he'll be here momentarily, which is good news.
All right. Once he gets back, I'll make the introduction. Oh, John Borak got something in the mail. It looks like maybe a promo. Is that a promo, John? No, not a promo. Something he bought.
No, he's still trying to clean up the water he spilled everywhere, all over the electronics. And
better than spill the wine, which certainly made the heavy 100 of 1970 on WABC.
Maybe we'll have that coming up too. There's Dom.
Oh, nice. Dom, do you hear us? Yeah. Uh-oh, I see it. Looks like he's frozen again. What the heck? Oh, not, yeah.
I'll tell you what, David, make the introduction. Let's see if we can bring him up and see if it changes in the room. And then if not, he can keep kicking it out.
All right. Well, anyway, we're very honored to have this gentleman on Material Issues. He's one of the most iconic power pop singer-songwriters, garage music as well, surf instrumentals, the whole bit. But my favorite bands of his are, of course, the Stems, with this great At First Sight album, or First Sight Violets Are Blue, which has this particular one has the extra disc, which is awesome. And then the Someloves, Something or Other,
wonderful,
with Daryl Mather, produced by Mitch Easter, and obviously he's had a long history with Mr. Easter. And then DM3, the quintessential power pop band. 1x, 2x, 3 Red Light is this particular album. I have a whole bunch of them over here, but And these days, he's still playing and producing this new album by Reinhardt's awesome power pop,
Which
produced
you
by
love, yeah.
yeah. So, and I'm waiting for the vinyl. I don't know where it is, but hopefully it'll be here soon. Anyway, hopefully we'll have a connection here. But without further ado, would you please give a huge Material Issues welcome to Mr. Dom Mariani?
Hi guys.
Hey, Dom.
Hey,
How you doing?
there he is.
You got me. There I am.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, good to see you, Dom. It's tomorrow, so if you could send me the winning lottery numbers, we would appreciate it.
No worries, I will.
Are you in Fremantle?
Yes.
Still?
Yeah, this is where I live. My home.
How close is Fremantle, or is Fremantle part of Perth or next door?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a separate little city. It's about 30 minutes out of Perth, south of Perth. Yeah, just on the coast here.
Was being in Perth a bit of a challenge to play even in the other region of Australia, because they weren't Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, not very close.
Definitely. Back in the 80s, definitely. There wasn't obviously the internet and everything like that, so it was quite isolated from everything. So the thing was to go to Sydney or Melbourne to try and get further with a band. So yeah, back in those days, it was difficult. We were quite isolated. We had a good little scene here. There was some good bands and everything, but a lot of them pretty much ended up, starting and finishing here. The Stems was an exception in that we took a little bit of a risk and decided to drive across and see how we'd go after releasing our first single, and it went well for us. We seemed to time it well with the kind of music trend, I guess, at the time. Unbeknown to us, there was other bands doing that kind of thing at that time, and we seemed to sort of luck into a movement that people wanted to hear this, I guess, 60s garage rock revival thing, and we were doing it because we loved it, but also fun. But it got further than we'd expected anyway. So yeah, we took the plunge and went over east, and that kind of got us going really. Once we connected with the audience on the East Coast, that really kept the band going for quite a while.
You moved there, or you just gigged there?
Yeah, we went across for about 4 or 5 months.
Oh, okay.
And that's where I hooked up with Daryl Mather.
Oh,
because Daryl had come over the previous, it was sort of around about Christmas here, about '84, and we were playing a few shows, local shows, and he saw us play and came backstage and was sort of just gushing about the band, saying, "Oh, this band is great. I love that band. It's what I wanted to do in the Lime Spiders and all this kind of thing." And we sort of kept in touch. He was very, very enthusiastic, and he knew a guy by the name of John Needham, the Citadel Records guy, and he told him all about us. And our manager at the time was planning a trip across to Sydney, and gave him a cassette, and the rest was history basically. And then they released the first single, which was "Make You Mine, She's a Monster," and Daryl and I were sort of keeping in touch during that time, and had organised to move out of a house he was living in, and Gary, the drummer, and myself ended up sharing a house with Daryl for that 4 or 5 months we were in Sydney. And during that time, the Someloves happened, and we became very close friends and talked about music a lot, which was beyond the garage music, which was, I guess what we call power pop. We both loved the Raspberries and White Twilly and all these things, and there weren't too many people that knew about that stuff. But Daryl was right into it, and
we should say because we haven't yet on the show. R.I.P. Dwight Twilley. Thank you so much for all the wonderful music you gave us.
Very, very sad, and absolute legend. Incredible music. Those first 2 albums, especially, just were a big influence on me. I played those records to death.
It's fascinating, Don, when we talk about just the challenges of being a band in the continent of Australia. I talked to a number of bands on my label from Norway, and just going from like one interesting gig to maybe another interesting gig is a 6 or 7 hour drive just to play, because where they're from, even if you're in Oslo or just the outskirts, you don't have a lot of places to play. You got to travel. And many times, being in the U.S., we hear from a lot of bands in the U.K. and Denmark, Sweden, Norway. But it's fascinating what the challenges are to be from Australia and really be kind of separated, so geographically separated from a lot of the world, just in being able to get your product out and get it known. Uh, can you talk about some of the real challenges facing a band from Australia back in your time? Maybe not so today with the internet, but pre-internet. What was necessary to get distribution outside of Australia?
Sure. Well, I guess for one thing was making those connections with, I guess, the small, fanzine type things where there were passionate people into a certain style of music. I guess that's how it started for say the Stems. There was this sort of subculture of garage rock, power pop, whatever you want to call it, and there were passionate people that had like fanzines and doing, I guess, independent releases. And somehow, you know what it's like, these people seem to find each other. So, the word spreads. There's a band in Australia, or there's a band in Perth or Brisbane that have released this record, and, it's really good. So, word kind of spreads around through those networks, and that's how it kind of starts. So that's how it kind of worked for the Stems. The Someloves was, obviously, the Stems had created a bit of a profile that we were able to build on. So the Someloves had a bit of a head start, but Daryl had sort of managed to contact Mitch Easter somehow, and he was interested in producing our record. So from that contact, because Mitch obviously has a good profile, and through his bands and the bands he'd worked with, that kind of brushed off onto us, I guess, in a way. Yeah.
Finding each other, you mentioned that. That's exactly how I found out about the Stems. I had started going to a record shop called Off the Record, which was in Encinitas, California, about 30 miles north of San Diego. And I got to know, it got to the point where the guy who managed the record store knew me so well and started to know my taste. Every time I would come in, he'd say, "I've got something bashian for you." And one day he showed me At First Sight, and I said, "Wow, this cover looks pretty groovy. Play it." And he did. All he had to do was play the first song, and was like, "Well, that's it. I'm buying this." So guys like him definitely created a network of people who dug, what certain bands did. Did you, in your record store experience as a record collector, did you have anybody who did that for you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I guess I failed to mention the record store because, I said fanzines, but record stores. There was a couple in town here that definitely, I was a regular, obviously going in to buy all sorts of stuff, and they kind of knew my taste, and they would get things in and go, "Hey, I think you would like this. Have a listen." One of the biggest coincidences was I used to work in a music shop, which was right across. There was a little tiny arcade, and it was right across from a record shop called Sound Scene. And I went in there, and it was sort of, I guess, about 1980, around that time. And it was that era where, the Knack and I guess that first wave of, I guess maybe the second wave of power pop, you might call that.
Right.
And there was just Plimsoll's album there. So I picked it up and looked at it. I liked like you say, I liked the look of the cover. Played it, and I thought, that's mine. I'm going to buy that. Anyway, many, many years later, just as I sort of formed the stems, I was walking into another record shop called Dada's, which is in the city here in Perth, and they were playing some music over the hi-fi system, and I thought, wow, what's this? I kind of know this voice, I know this sound. It sounds amazing. And so I walked up to the counter. I said, hey, what's this? And the guy goes, I pulled out the record and said, oh, it's the Plimsolls' new album. It was Everywhere at Once. And I thought, wow, they've made another album. I'm buying that one. He took it off. Took it off the deck and put it in the sleeve, and I took it away. So
I love that.
Just things like that. That was just one of those moments.
No, that's so,
whatever you want to call it.
Those are so much fun. Did the stems ever get to play outside of Australia?
Not in the day. Later on, our first sort of venture overseas was going to Europe in 2003.
Right.
And then from there, we did all sorts of things. We came to the US a couple of times. Did very small select shows, basically. We did one big one for little Stephen. That was the Underground Garage Festival. But we did South by Southwest and Maxwell's. So that
Maxwell's was a wonderful venue.
Hoboken, it was.
Gone now, but yeah.
Yeah, and then with Japan and back to Europe and places like Greece, Italy, Spain, Scandinavia. So we've done quite a bit of touring outside of Australia now. But that was once we reformed back in 2003.
Did you you say we have are the stems still active in some way?
Yeah, we are. Like we do. Last year we did one show. This next coming year, 2024, we plan to do a few more. It's the first half of next year. We've got some shows planned, so we'll be back for just some Australian shows to start with, and there's talk about going back to Europe as well.
But as the Zimmerman said, don't go to Sydney. So maybe not.
Oh, we've always found Sydney pretty good.
No,
it's been good to us.
I had to quote a relatively obscure Australian band.
Yeah.
Actually, I found out about them the same place I found out about the Stems. So they had this really strong Australian connection.
Yeah, it was a good scene back then.
I got to say, if it wasn't for fanzines or if it wasn't for, little places where I could find out so much about the bands like the Stems and the Someloves, that's really the avenue that I took. But I really want to say, Dom, thanks so much for the music. Such a big fan. I'm on vacation right now in Epcot with my daughters in Disney World, but I wanted to get on right here and say a quick big hello before we bring our other guest host on, who is also a very big Dom Mariani fan. So, Dom, have a wonderful evening. Yeah.
Thanks,
have a wonderful evening. It's been wonderful to meet you. Because there's a lot of background noise and things, I'm going to exit and say, gentlemen, have a wonderful night. And David, bring on our guest host. And Dom, God bless you, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. All the best.
So now let's bring on our indomitable guest host, author of books on the Beatles, power pop, etc., and a huge fan of all things Dom Mariani. Let's bring on our esteemed guest, Mr. John Borak.
Oh, great.
Wow, what an intro. Hey, Dom.
Hey, John. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. So great to meet you, man. After all these years.
I know. We've exchanged emails and everything, but it's good to see your face and hear your voice.
Wow. This is a pleasure for me, or an honor, I should say.
Pleasure is all mine.
Fantastic. Great.
So
I saw your article on Dwight Twilley just recently, and loved that. And fantastic.
Yeah, very, very. It was a big surprise, obviously, to all of us, and
very much
sad news. And listening to all Dwight's music, all the stuff down through the years. A lot of people, like you mentioned, love those first two albums, which are great. But there's so much other good stuff.
Oh, there is. I've got a few of the others. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Scuba divers.
We had Dom. We had Dwight as a guest on Material Issues little over a year ago.
Yeah. You know, and I just heard also they're going to be reissuing Scuba Divers and Jungle on CD. They've been out of print for so long, but
Yeah.
Iconoclastic Record is going to be releasing them on CD with bonus tracks and all that sort of thing. So that's cool.
And of course,
Right.
Don, you've had so many labels reissue your stuff.
Yeah.
Is it mostly them contacting you saying we want to do this, or is it your manager contacting them, or how does it work?
Yeah. Well, what have we got? We've got, well, Citadel, obviously, they wanted to do an overview at one point. And then there was a Live Records in the US there that did a compilation as well. And we also did one with the Japanese label, Target Earth. They're the ones I can think of right now. But there seems to be quite a bit of interest in that band, or there was. And, these people kind of reached out and said, yeah, we should do something, get it out there. Because previously they were only available, like the albums were only available, I guess, on import here from Australia. Yeah. There was a bit of licensing in Europe with a label called Running Circle when we were going during the day, which was for the European market. So first three albums actually came out in Europe. But yeah,
I've got a few things here. Let me see.
So is there any talk, Dom, about re-releasing some of the DM3 stuff and even the stems material, other material you've done on vinyl?
Yes, there's been talk about the stem stuff. There's the first album. Well, there's been a compilation that's just been released, which is called Mushroom Soup, which came out on Cheer Squad just recently, which collected all the early singles, and EPs, and some outtakes.
Oh yeah.
So
what do you know? Here it is.
That's the one. Yeah. So that came out not long ago, and there's a reissue of the second album planned for sometime next year, and a live album. So that's the stem stuff. DM3. There's been talk about another compilation, but nothing's really come to fruition on that yet. Just because the live released a reasonably,
there's a few things,
concise sort of compilation, but there's lots of other tracks, which I thought were pretty good that were left off that. So it was kind of selection between myself and the label. They kind of put a couple of songs forward that they thought they'd like to see on there. But yeah, nothing
live compilation.
Yeah, that's the one. But I'd like to see all the albums released individually again on vinyl. Yeah, that'd be good.
I have a feeling that won't be a problem. There'll probably be somebody out there who wants to do it, and it gives you the conditions that you want. So we'll just hope.
Yeah, I was listening to Little Steven's Underground Garage the other day on Sirius, and they played a stem song, which I thought was really, really cool. I know they're big supporters of your work.
Yeah, Little Steven. Yeah, I've become friends with him. He reached out quite a while ago when the Springsteen band came to tour Australia.
Oh,
and from that point on, we sort of become friends and we're in contact. So when there's a new release, I let him know about it. And he was a big Stems fan. He couldn't believe that we'd come from the 80s, because maybe he thought we were from the 60s, which was quite funny.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you can't get a better compliment than that.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Can't Forget That Girl is my favorite song of yours.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I like that one too.
I have to ask you something about DM3, though. This is something I've wanted to know since I first heard the debut album. Was One Time, Two Times Devastated, was that title inspired at all by Zoot's 1 times, 2 times, 3 times 4?
Yeah, I like to sort of play on things like that, songs that I like. Even, I guess, some of the album titles that I've had over the years, sort of like Rippled Soul was like, Rubber Soul and things like that. So, yeah, a sort of little play on things that, even I think it's the 1910 Fruit Gum Company did 1, 2, 3 Red Light.
They did.
So, yeah, that's a bit of a play on the Zoot and 1910 Through Gum Company. A big bubblegum music fan. Always have been, from.
We never heard Zoot in the States. Even
really?
Even after, none of their songs charted here. Even after Rick Springfield made it big, you would think somebody would have done a reissue of that stuff and put it out in the States. Nobody ever did.
There is an album out there. I think it's a vinyl, but I'm not sure if it's just an Australian issue. Great band. Yeah, I remember those guys fondly. When watching those sort of TV shows back.
They toured. They actually did some shows in Australia. I think last year they got back together.
Yeah, that didn't actually happen.
Oh, it didn't.
Yeah, because my band was scheduled to support them here in Perth, and it was all go, and then the pandemic sort of came and knocked it on the head, which was a real shame. We were all excited about that. It was Rick Springfield was playing, and I think the singer was a guy by the name of Russell Morris. So I don't know if you've heard of him.
Oh, the guy who did The Real Thing?
Yeah.
Oh, he's still he was singing playing with them now? Who was it that had been in that band? Was it Daryl Cotton or?
Daryl Cotton was the singer. He passed away, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
And Beef Birtles, who was in the Little River Band later.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's funny. Speaking of things that didn't happen, I remember back in 2003, you were scheduled to play David's Festival, International Pop Overthrow, in Chicago, and I was going to fly out there, and you would ask me to play drums for you.
I think it was 2002, John.
2002, anyway.
Because it was not long after 9/11.
Right. That's right. Yeah, and I was scheduled to play drums, and oh my gosh, I was so excited and so bummed out when it didn't happen.
Oh,
you and me both.
I apologize now in person. There we go. Well, it's sort of in person.
I understood why I understood your trepidation at the time. I did try to convince you that it would be okay, but I know, you told me I have a family and I can't risk it. And I got it.
I think at the time it was just, it wasn't going to, the stars weren't going to align for that. And I had Mitch sort of lined up as well, and he kind of pulled the pin, and, it sort of made the whole thing a little bit less, I guess. If Mitch was going to be involved, I would sort of go the extra mile to kind of be there. But in the end, it was, I thought, well, I don't know if I want to, I can risk this, so I didn't end up doing it.
Well, maybe one day we'll get you back out here again, and we'd love to hear you play.
Wow, we would love that so much, Don.
Yeah, I'd love to do it. Definitely, there's always a chance. Definitely, I'm up for playing. So if I can make it happen, if there's some way of getting there, I'll try to do it.
So the question that I had for you, I know you've done some musical work with your son, right?
Yeah, he's sort of involved in music to a certain degree these days. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell our listeners some of what you guys have done together and what he's all about.
Okay. Well, John, he's now 30, so that
crazy, right?
I'll sort of put that one there. John was involved in a young group with his cousin Dion, and they had this band called the Flares, and they were a three-piece band with a drummer, Scarlett, who's gone on and joined another band called San Cisco, who've done quite well here now. And they had this band going for about 4 or 5 years. I was there just more of an encouragement, really, and I ended up producing their little recording that they did. It got released, and he's really into sort of, I think, the right music. It's not like I've pushed it onto him.
Mm-hmm.
He's more or less gravitated to it. He likes sort of harder rock stuff, as I do as well. I do like that stuff too, as you know. He's got good musical taste, and he plays guitar a fair bit. These days, he's not really playing in a band. He's got a day job, but we listen to a lot of music together, and we always sort of, have you heard this or have you heard that? It's great. I love it. As my daughter as well, Ruby, she's really into music as well. So they're always turning me on to new things, which is cool.
Who are some of the current bands that you like?
Oh, okay. Well, I've been working with a local band called Reinhardt's, which you probably know about. They've just released that new album.
This is it right here. It's great.
Yeah,
Great
I was
job on production. Awesome.
happy to be involved in that in production. I'm sort of doing a bit more of that these days. I saw them play. They actually supported my band Datura 4, and I was listening to them. And I thought, wow, these guys have got some really good little songs. And I just got talking to them. I said, hey, if you ever want to put something together, I'd love to help you do it. And they got in touch, and that's how the ball got rolling, really. They sent me songs. The guy, Benny Ward, who's the lead singer, is a prolific songwriter. He sent me like 20 songs, and then from that we chose 10, and then just started sort of chipping away, getting some arrangements right, and then we started the recording process, which from there, we talked about changing a few things and adding harmony and melodies, and just to bring the songs to life, I guess. And I think it came out pretty well, actually. I'm very, very proud of it.
Yeah, it's probably a top 10 for me this year. So
wow.
I still need to pick it up. I've heard some of the sound clips, and they sound wonderful. That must be just a huge thrill for a young band who's into power pop to have Dom Mariani produce their record. I mean, they must have been so excited to work with you.
I guess so. Yeah. Look, we talked a lot about music and where I sort of came from, and the guys have got their feet fairly well planted on the ground, which was really nice. A really nice bunch of guys. They weren't sort of too kind of delusional about what could happen. But I said, look, if you listen to some of the things I've got to say, and we carry them out, and you're happy to sort of work hard, I think we'll come up with something pretty good, because you've got the songs. It's just a matter of the execution in the studio, and that was great. And yeah, I've made some nice friends there, and they're very excited about the prospect of what can happen now with the music.
Speaking of where that you came from, I know we're not doing everything in order like some people do, but tell us where you came from, your musical influences, how you got into bands, your early bands, etc.
Sure. Well, from very early on, listening to top 40 AM radio, I guess is kind of my first exposure to the music that I eventually became to love. And at the time, obviously the Beatles is the first one. We ticked that one off, but bands like the Bee Gees were big for me. And then hearing bands like the Raspberries and Badfinger, those sorts of sounds really resonated with me. And bands like Creedence Clearwater and the Stones, the sort of more R&B, rock and roll, bluesy kind of influenced bands I really liked. I guess I've always been into a strong melody and a hook, something that resonates. A great vocal also was important. But the radio back in those days played all sorts of stuff. So there was, you had your crossover country, you had your bubble gum, you had your, there was so much stuff going on and all these great new exciting bands. So, you'd hear something on the radio and go, wow, that's really cool, and go and buy it.
Was it actually AM and FM in Australia, or
we just had AM for a long time? Yeah, FM I think started here maybe 1980 or 1981. I'm not sure. Might stand corrected on that, but yeah, it was just AM radio for a very long time here.
Speaking of your influences, you just ticked off a bunch of them, and you mentioned the Plimsolls earlier. I think you can tell a lot about an artist by the songs that they cover, and you've been on a lot of tributes. And I know you covered a CCR song, and you covered a Plimsolls song. I know, of course, you covered a Shoes song, as you were on the Shoes tribute that I put together, and it's been 22 years now. Crazy, but
wow.
Yeah. So when you cover a song that is by one of your heroes or somebody you admire, do you I mean, how do you approach it differently than an original or differently than a song that you're covering that maybe you're not as familiar with?
Well, firstly, when if I'm asked to do something like that, I've got to love the artist, got to love the song, and then I try not to mess with it too much. But then I can only be myself, and sure, there's certain songs or certain artists that I always feel like they're untouchable. So I think I won't go there. But if something is sort of close and I want to do it, I feel like I can do a reasonable version. I'll sort of go for it. With the Shoes track, obviously we tried to get close to what they did, but then it's DM3.
Right.
So it's a DM3 sort of version of that. And we didn't sort of mess with the arrangement too much. We kept it the same. So something like the Creedence cover we did, we kind of did that in a three-piece kind of power trio kind of version, even though that song, when they released that, they were a trio.
Right.
Yeah.
Which one did you cover?
Sweet Hitchhiker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One of their final hits in the States, yeah.
Yeah, and the Plimsolls, I felt like, well, I always thought DM3 was close to the Plimsolls as far as a band and a sound, so we tried to get as close as we could with that. But yeah, I'm always, mindful of the songs I do if I'm going to cover them.
That was one of the things I've always admired about all of your work, but particularly with DM3 is people throw the term power pop around, and a lot of it, while it's poppy, is not necessarily always powerful. But DM3, you guys were you had both ends covered. You were super poppy,
right off the chalkboard, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. The guitars were out in front, the vocals, the harmonies. It was classic stuff, definitely.
Yeah, they're the bands I gravitated to the most, I guess. Those sort of rock and rolly kind of, in a word, pop bands that had that, the sort of the great guitar energy, or the band energy and the great melody. We sort of bandy the Raspberries around, or Badfinger. They had a bit of a muscular feel to the music that they did, and the Plimsolls and things like that. So. Yeah, it's kind of the way I played. I've played in bands pretty much from, the moment I got a guitar when I was 14. So, playing in a band, I think, lends itself to that. And, playing different styles of music as you progress on that musical journey to become, who you are in a way.
Who are some of the cool Perth area bands that you came up with?
Some of the Perth bands that were around at the time. Is that what you?
Yeah, while you were playing in some of your early bands.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, early days, it was quite a, I guess you'd call it a sort of progressive blues rock scene here. As a sort of budding guitarist, there were some bands here by the name of Fatty Lumpkin and Sitting Bull that were kind of heavy bands, but I like the way they played. I like that kind of style of what you'd say late 60s, early 70s kind of hard rock blues thing. So that as an early sort of a budding guitar player trying to get my chops together, I was drawn to those bands. When you become sort of aware that there's some cool stuff going on out there, that's what the scene was here. But as that kind of progressed musically, then we started to sort of hear the punk thing come in, and then I guess new wave and all those sorts of things come through, and the West Coast sounds obviously were influencing the local bands. But there was a band that got me sort of started with the songwriting. There was a band called the Mannequins. I'm not sure if you heard of those guys. They were a great band, and Neil Fernandez, the guy who was the leader of that band, wrote some really great songs, had some great melody. And I covered one of their songs as well. So, they were a band I did go and see when I was thinking, well, I'm going to form a band now and it's going to be this kind of thing. And I really like what they're doing, but I'm going to sort of add a bit more kind of 60s flavour to it. So that's they were a band that influenced me quite a bit, and plus there was some cool sort of R&B bands playing locally, like the Elks and Last Chance Cafe, that we'd go and see. They'd play sort of local venues here.
With all those different styles, how did you wind up becoming a garage band? Were there some that garage bands that influenced you?
Well, yeah, look, I've always loved that music. For me, I'd been in bands previous to that, which were, I guess, similar, but sort of finding their way as far as what we actually wanted, a direction. One guy wanted to do this and another guy wanted to do that, whereas I was purely focused on this kind of 60s style of influenced music. And in the end, I realized, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to break this band up and get other guys that are more interested in what I want to do, because this other band wasn't really going anywhere. But just, through the love of the Beatles and the Easy Beats and the Kinks and the Who, and, I was really into those bands big time. It got me to the Nuggets compilation and discovering all the wonderful bands that sort of came out of that, all these obscure garage bands from America and English bands, and being a person that really loves music, I just really delved in and started buying records and discovering all this amazing stuff, and that got me going, with that, and that was sort of early '80s. And along with that, you had your Plimsolls and the Knack and the DBs. The DBs were a big influence, actually. That Repercussions album was
great album, yeah.
An album I discovered sort of early, and had a big influence. And obviously that what they were doing sort of harked or was influenced by a lot of that stuff as well. So that's how I came to find out about all this other stuff, through bands like that.
So what was the kind of moving from the Stems to the Someloves to DM3? How did that progression sort of happen?
It's kind of I think it was a natural progression. Like the Stems started pretty much with a combination of garage and power pop. We were doing, Zero Hour by the Plimsolls as a cover. We were doing Stomping All Over the World by Kimberly Rue, and a few other things. And the previous band was doing songs off the first Plimsolls album, and various other sort of power pop tunes that were from records that we bought at the time. But yeah, I think I slowly kind of thought, well, this garage thing, I like it, but I want to progress and sort of show what I can really do and write songs with more melody. So we were becoming a bit more melodious, I guess, in the songwriting. And sort of going towards the end of the Stems. And the album that we released, had songs like Running Around and Never Be Friends, For Always, At First Sight, which were kind of moving towards that.
Yeah.
And once the Stems were finished, and a lot had to do with my friendship with Daryl Mather, because we recorded a couple of things under the Someloves during the Stems, and we were big fans of Twilly and Big Star and Raspberries and all that, and I think that was kind of like the natural progression for me, and that's how the Someloves album came about.
Someloves is definitely a great example of what people like to call now jangle pop. I mean,
yes.
At the time it was called, like, they were calling things like that alternative rock or college radio rock. But it's total jangle pop, and you can see the progression for sure.
Yeah, and so once the Someloves was done, then DM3 obviously were formed. And some of the songs off the first album were going to be on the second Someloves album, as were, I think, some of the tunes that Daryl had for the first Orange Humble Band album. So it never eventuated through various things, but yeah, it was just a natural progression. I wanted to sort of follow my heart, and that's what I was wanting to do. Just I had all these songs and ideas just come, and wanted to keep sort of going with that. Yeah.
Those songs probably would have sounded a little different if they were Someloves songs, right?
Possibly, yeah.
Now I know there's a version of the Someloves album that has Daryl, I think, singing all the lead vocals. That was released much later. How did you guys come to get the guest vocalist to come on and sing lead on most of those? How did that occur?
Well, it was mainly through Mitch's contact while we were there. A few names were thrown around, and we knew of Jamie Hoover, and there was Bobby from the Windbreakers that came along as well. Wonderful voice, and
R.I.P.
A few other people that were friends of Mitch's. There was sort of a little scene or people that he'd worked with that were he was able to contact, and so he would say, "Oh, we can get Bobby to come along," and I thought, "Oh, great, let's get him along." So we were very open to that.
Yeah, a great record. Like all the DM3 records, the Someloves record is one of my favorites. I think though when I said the guest vocalist singing lead, I was speaking of the Orange Humble Band. I got my
okay, yeah.
A little bit confused there.
Well, the Orange Humble Band, had Ken Stringfellow.
Right, and that's what I was speaking of. Yeah.
Which it was sort of an unfortunate thing for me because I had DM3 going at the time, and Daryl and I were in touch a fair bit, and he was trying to push this next Someloves album still, and I said, look, I really don't want to do it because I don't have time. And in the end, I think he just got jack of me sort of not committing, and he got Ken to do the vocals and called it Orange Humble Band, so that's how that kind of eventuated, and that's fair enough, and those albums are great.
Yeah, Dom, you've released a lot of great stuff, and I don't mean to sound like a blathering fanboy here, but what the hell, I will, because I don't care, because I am when it comes to your music. But
nothing wrong with that. I'm a fanboy myself.
When I really love a song, especially after I've heard it for the first couple of times, I listen to it over and over and over and over. So on CD, I would hit the repeat button over and over and over. And you have so many of those songs with the Stems, with the Someloves, with DM3 that made me do. One of them is At First Sight with the Stems. Love that one. Another one was on the Someloves album, I Didn't Mean That.
Oh yeah.
And a DM3 song that made me do that was One Times, Two Times, Devastated. So it's just so much amazing stuff.
Thank you. Well, One Times, Two Times, Devastated was going to be on the Someloves album. We'd recorded it, and it's sitting there somewhere. We didn't finish the vocals on it, but there was that one, and there was another song called TV Sound,
right,
which we'd recorded for the Someloves album, the first one. And when it came to, because back in those days it was 2-inch tape, and we took 2 big reels across with us to the States to finish with Mitch, and those 2 songs we had to get another roll of tape to put them on. And Daryl said, well, you haven't done the vocals on those 2, and they're probably not as strong as some of the other songs on the album, so I reckon we should just leave them behind. And I said, yeah, okay, fair enough. That was it. Wow. And we never got to finish those songs. I guess he saw those as being more on the bubblegum side of things. But I always loved those 2 songs, and I did them on DM3 anyway, so I got them done in the end.
Yeah, they're both great stuff. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tell us about Majestic Help. That has to be a lot of fun for you.
Oh, absolutely. I've always been a fan of instrumental music, and my earliest sort of guitar lessons and things that I'd learned to play were basically shadows and like things like Apache, and then walk, don't run, ventures, and wipeout. So as a young guitar player, you know, they weren't that hard to play, and my guitar teacher at the time was showing me how to do those songs. But just the love of that kind of music, just the twangy guitar of surf, spaghetti western, whatever you want to call that kind of genre. I'd always loved it, and there's little, I guess, little bits and pieces on some of the songs that I've done over the years that have those tones and reference those kinds of things. So once the DM3 was I guess done, I wanted to do an album of these songs that I'd written that I guess I'd collected and thought, well, one day I'm going to put these on a CD and just get them out there, just to record them, just as a record. You know, to say that I wrote these songs and I've recorded them now, and okay, I'm moving on. But as it worked out, I was enjoying it so much, and with the guys that I was playing with, that it sort of evolved, and we ended up doing 4 albums in the end. Just the ideas and the songs kept coming, and I think the last 2 albums, I think I got pretty close to what I was trying to achieve, which was a really kind of eclectic mix of that surf sound with the sort of exotica, Ennio Morricone, you know, Arthur Lyman type things, you know, just weird music that I listened to as well, soundtracky kinds of things, sort of not sort of make it just like straight surf guitar band, because you know, there's a lot of that stuff around, but I just wanted to kind of really go really wide with it, and not have any kind of anything to sort of, I guess, you know, keep me in a sort of a straight direction. I just wanted to, you know, see what songs came and just do them as I thought they should be done in the studio.
Did you know that the Shadows never charted in the States? We had no idea who they were.
Really?
I have no idea why, because, you know, as you mentioned, a few of the other bands like the Shantays and the Ventures, and they charted here, but the Shadows, not even a dent. In the UK, of course, they had huge hits. One thing that people don't know about the Shadows is that they were a great vocal group too. They had some amazing songs like "The Dreams I Dream" and "Stay Around." Those are awesome vocally, with great harmonies and everything. They you know, they could have been a classic vocal band if they wanted, but their forte was instrumentals, and they did them really well.
Yeah, they had Cliff Richard up front.
Yeah.
And,
who also didn't do anything in the charts here until the 70s. Yeah, until he had Devil Woman. Prior to that, he had virtually nothing on the charts in the States.
Yeah, he was here in, you know, quite a bit on the radio. Yeah, things like Goodbye Sam, Hello Samantha. I don't know if you know.
Right, I do.
Yeah,
I have his collections.
But Hank Marvin actually lives in Perth. Would you believe?
Oh, really? Oh, he lives.
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know.
Yeah, yeah, I've met him once, and he's got a gypsy jazz thing going on these days. So he plays with his keyboard player, the piano chord he played. He played on the Majestic Kelp 3rd album. This guy Nunzio Mondia.
Oh, nice.
That's how I got to meet him. Yeah, because they've been recording together and playing gigs together.
Were you quite the fanboy when you met him, or did you?
Oh yeah, he looks exactly the same.
Oh wow.
Yeah, a little bit older, but he's amazing. He's just like hasn't changed his look at all. He looks like from a distance, it's like Hank always looks, you know.
I wanted. You mentioned earlier about your son having a day job. A lot of people don't know, but I guess you also have, or maybe still had, a day job as an architect, right?
I do, yes. Architectural designer, yeah. I did that as for study, and before the STEMs came along, I'd worked for a couple of years. But my whole thing was I was going to become a big, you know, pop star, rock star. So you know, working was only just a thing I was going to do for a short while before it all happened for me. And then when the stems came along, and that was a great experience. But once that finished off, I'd started a family, and I started to look at things and thought, well, yeah, I'm not making a whole lot of money out of this music, so if I need to go back and make some money to pay the bills. But I started to enjoy it, and just the creativity in architectural work, and I stuck with it, but been able to sort of do my own thing and have my own little business so I can do music. So I was never going to compromise my music, because to go out there and just play cover versions of songs and just play in a band for the sake of it, just to get that frustration out, was never going to be me. It was more, I had the creative side that I wanted to write and do music on a serious level. So the job allowed me to sort of pay the bills, and whatever spare time I got, I was into the music and writing and touring, doing what I could. So I was sort of doing the two things at once.
Well, we're glad you continue to do original music, because cover band, I can tell you, in running a music festival which only showcases original bands, cover bands have been the bane of my existence. Because so many clubs, that's all they're booking now.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, come on, there's so many, but that's what pays the freight. So.
And as someone who plays in 2 cover bands currently, David, I'm sorry.
Well, so far your bands haven't infiltrated the venues I use, so it's okay.
No, we're on the way.
You're on the way. Okay, great. So Dom, go ahead, John.
I was just going to ask you, Dom, to tell us about what you're doing now with Datura 4 and a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's been going since 2008, 2009. Again, it was another thing that it was a side project that kind of took off, really. I was talking about the sort of early influences of the sort of psychedelic, hard progressive blues rock thing. And I love a lot of that stuff, and you probably hear a little bit of that in some of the music I do. But I was never going to be like the music that I did in, say, DM3 and the Stems. I knew that genre very well, so I was never going to sort of rip out some crazy shreddy guitar solos. You play what's required for the song in the spirit and the style. But as a musician, I have those, I guess, those attributes or those things in my locker, I suppose. So always loved the Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and Black Sabbath and bands like that. And again, those bands wrote great songs. Yeah. And I always sort of hark back to those bands that wrote really great songs. And it's connected to an era where the musicians and everything was a lot more organic, and those records just sound fantastic. So I wanted to do a record like that, because I had these songs that I'd written that I thought, well, they're not quite right for these bands that I'm doing, but one day, I'll form a little band just to, have a bit of fun and do this kind of thing. And we did the first album, and it got picked up by a US label, and it just sort of went from there. Now we're sort of 5 albums in. And again, I'm very conscious about, the song's got to be a good song, and it's got to be catchy. It's got to have a good riff and a melody. So those attributes that I bring to a band like Datura 4, which is obviously heavier, more jammy, psychedelic, and a lot more self-indulgent when it comes to sort of the musicianship side of things. I try and bring it all together so that when people hear it, you like it or you don't, whatever. But for myself, it's been quite satisfying.
Yeah, I could hear a little bit of that sort of bluesy, kind of heavy rock thing on the Road to Rome album, on the song "I Thought That You Were Foolin'." It kind of has that vibe to it.
Yeah, which sort of, to me, that song was a bit sort of more like later day Beatles, like Your Blues or something,
right?
That kind of thing where the Beatles were connecting with that style, through your Eric Claptons and the Cream and yeah, so I guess that's a wonderful thing about music. Back in that day, they were all kind of progressing together.
What did you think of Zoot's version of Eleanor Rigby? Because that was
I really love it. Yeah,
they turned it into a hard
it's a
rock.
kind of bombastic version, but it's got the harmonies and it's got all the drama in the song. I really like it. Yeah, I remember seeing that on TV. I don't know if you've ever seen the film clip of that.
I've seen videos. Yeah.
Yeah, that it would probably be from those shows, and being when I was
You mentioned
14 years
Zeppelin
old.
earlier. I don't know if anyone else has ever thought this. Maybe I'm crazy, but what is and what should never be? I think if that was done by a power pop band, they could really turn that into a power pop song. So keep that in mind if you ever want to do a Zeppelin cover. That's the one I recommend.
All right,
Do a power pop version of it.
version of that.
There's a lot of Zeppelin songs with just wonderful melodies. People kind of give them short shrift. Oh, heavy metal, blues, boring, whatever. There's a lot of great melodies there.
Oh, absolutely.
Page and Plant, Bonham, yeah, they were great songwriters.
Yeah, I find that way. I find that sort of attitude. I don't really agree with people. Tend to be a little bit narrow-minded when it comes to music. You're either like this or you don't. Everything outside it's heavy metal or whatever you want to call it. It's not heavy metal. Heavy metal to me is more of a virtuoso style of thing, and to me that's just heavy rock. Heavy blues rock, or it's just like the same. The '60s music just played heavier.
Right. So again,
bigger amplifiers. To me, like the Raspberries were the classic band of where they took the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and the Who, and then played it through Marshall amplifiers. And just had all those attributes of great harmonies, great melodies, and songs. It was like the Beatles on steroids a bit.
Right. Especially side 3. That one.
Brilliant. Yeah,
that one is definitely quintessential heavier power pop.
Well, in the end, as with your music, Dom, it's always been all about the song.
Absolutely,
that's how it should be, and that's how that's how you've operated throughout your entire career, which is really cool.
Oh yeah, thank you. Well, that's for me that's a great compliment because that's what I do and that's what I love. And I for me, it doesn't matter what genre of music it is. I can hear a great song is a great song. And
so back to what you're doing. If you do come to the States and do shows, which band would it be with? Would it be with the Stems or DM3 or Someloves or?
Very, very good question. Well, you might hear it first here.
Please.
I've sort of been doing all these other things, and Datura 4 has been the main vehicle for my stuff at the moment. But I have been working on a solo album for about 2 or 3 years now, which is kind of, I guess if I want to give it a description, it's sort of DM3, but sort of going from there, like building on from there.
Right.
So it's more pop. And I want to get that finished so that I can do some gigs under my own name and go out there and play, I guess, a selection from that new record, but also a selection from the back catalogue, which would be mainly, I guess, DM3, Someloves, maybe the odd Datura 4 song, if it fits.
Nice.
Maybe Majestic Kelp song as well, and stem songs. Because just recently I did a thing here where there was a movie. It was I guess a documentary on the guy who set up Mushroom Records, which was the label that the Stems and the Someloves are on. And they reached out to me because I'm, I guess, one of the only Perth musicians that got signed to that label, and they wanted a performer, something different before, something to bring the people in for the premiere. So they reached out and asked me if I'd do a little set of songs. And I did 4 Someloves and 3 Stem songs, and I really enjoyed it. And it was with some musicians that I've been playing with in recent times, and it sounded really great, and I really had a great time. So it's like a little seed that's been planted now that I'll I'm not sure when it will happen, but that's kind of where I want to go.
Well, obviously, best of luck with that, and please reach out when it happens. I mean, it would be my honor to have you play at International Pop Overthrow in whichever configuration you want. So,
sure. When is that? What time of the year?
Well, we do it in a whole bunch of different cities. So it's usually between April and November in different places. And of course, we've got. I don't know if you've ever played the Cavern Club, but we do that in every at the end of May every year. So
wow,
that's
cool.
Oh, look, Mark is coming back on.
I of course would lobby for Los Angeles, Dom, because
yeah, Los Angeles is in August. That's probably a little easier a trip than Liverpool, but
yeah. California in the summertime is very nice.
Very nice. Well, I have been thinking about coming to California, I must say, because the label Alive and Bomb are there.
Yeah.
And I've got meaning
about 10 miles from me, actually.
Come over and just say hi to those guys. And yeah, these things have been going through my mind. So, and I'm hoping I can make that happen.
We hope so.
Yeah.
Well, Dom, thank you very, very much for appearing. We really appreciate it. This was fun. I'm glad you're still doing what you're doing, and we certainly look forward to the new album.
Oh, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. It's great to actually meet you guys. I guess it's not in person, but it's the next best thing.
Yeah,
definitely the next best thing. And
no, it's an honor for me. You guys, I follow a bit, so. You music guys, and I love music guys.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for all the music over the years.
Thank you.
Yes,
it's been
absolutely.
Great. David and I, and so many more people here, really, really appreciate everything that you do. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, and look, thanks for the support over the years. It's been wonderful. It's helped me, and I'm glad you like what I do.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah.
All right, Dom, well, take care. Have a great day. It's what is it now? About 9 something in Australia. So
10 past 9.
10 past 9. So,
starting.
Have a great day, and we'll stay in touch.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, Dom.
Thanks. Bye. See you. Take care.
You too. Oops. What do we have here? I think you. John, are you here?
I'm in the waiting room.
Oh God, how do I don't know. Let me text Mark.
Now I'm back on.
And I'm not.
I don't see you. We have a few technical difficulties here, folks, but we're trying to work them out.
Let me text Mark. And
time being, it's just me. Wow, this is my dream come true. Maybe now would be a good time to show you my Material Issues t-shirt. Yeah. You can get those where, David? David will tell me from the great beyond. Where can they get a shirt, David? Should they like one?
Good question. I guess contact Mark Hershberger. Oh, here comes Mark.
Now David's back on.
Now I'm back on, and John isn't. And Mark is trying to get back on.
Oh boy.
Now, yeah.
Dave, there we are.
Now we're back.
Wow, look at that.
Now hopefully Mark comes back, but
Mark, here comes Mark. He's trying.
Mark, you there?
It might be. I might be in a dark car right now, which is not unusual for me. But
you are in a dark car indeed.
Do not, Mark. Do not host and drive. It's very dangerous.
Yeah, it's not that. It's really not easy to stare at the camera and drive in traffic.
Well, hopefully you're not
driving. Especially in Florida, where you're not.
I'm not driving. My daughter Leah, who works here at Disney World, is driving. It's just I'm in a dark car, so you really can't see me.
But, hi, Leah.
Hello, Leah. We've never met. Hello.
Hi.
So Leah just said hi. Yeah, we're.
Let's talk about who's coming up, because we have a really power-packed November. For everybody, starting on November 2nd. A lot of people here, especially if you were in the U.S. or Canada, and you grew up with FM radio, you knew the song "I'm an Adult Now" by The Pursuit of Happiness. and you may know their albums pretty well as well. But on November 2nd, I'm sorry, which is a Thursday rather than Wednesday, we're going to have the great Mo Berg of The Pursuit of Happiness, not of Major League Baseball. Yeah, we're going to definitely talk about that whole thing. I think at one point I asked him about the original Mo Berg and if he had to take any crap over that. But yeah, we're going to have the great Mo Berg, who is still doing music, and that should be a lot of fun. And then on the 8th, which will be a Wednesday, we're going to have none other than the iconic Jeff Murphy of Shoes.
Oh, and Shoes.
And Shoes, yes. Maybe we'll have a couple, one or more of the other guys. We don't know yet, but we're definitely going to have Jeff, and that should be amazing.
If you have two of them, you would have a pair of shoes.
A pair of shoes. Hopefully we'll have a pair of shoes and extra, but we'll see what happens there. Mark, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm kind of in and out, but yeah, I think I can hear you.
So, Mark,
I was gonna ask you to announce who's going to be on the 15th of November.
You go ahead, since I can hear you clearly. You know two great guys, the original members of the association. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the association is one of my favorite bands of all time, and I got to meet Russ Jaguar briefly at a show, but I don't know the other guys. But Mark reached out, and we're going to have the great Jules Alexander and Jim Yester of the association as our guests.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, you can. Some people would argue that they were even a better harmony band than the Beach Boys. It's close for me, for sure. I mean, I'd say this: Everything That Touches You by the association might have the most amazing vocal mix, especially in some of the choruses, that I've ever heard anybody do. So I'll say
right.
that. So it'll be quite the honor to have those guys on. So that's what we've got on the 15th. As of now, the 22nd is empty, so that may end up being just Mark and me again, and who knows. On the 29th, and this is fitting, it's my brother Joel's birthday, and he's the one who got us this.
Tom Scholes is going to be on.
No, my brother Joel, not Tom Scholes.
Oh, Tom Scholes.
Because he likes Boston.
Boston. That's right. We're gonna talk about how power pop Boston is. No, we're gonna have a music attorney, entertainment lawyer by the name of Erin Jacobson, and she wrote a book called. I'm looking for the title now. Don't Get Screwed: How to Protect Yourself as an Independent Musician. So she could give a lot of advice to people who have been on labels or want to be on labels, and just some of the pitfalls, the hazards that one might encounter if they're not careful and they don't do their research. So that book should. I'm going to try and get myself a copy of the book before she's on. But Joel knew her, and he was the one who connected us. So this should be fun and very instructive for a lot of musicians who may be going or may have gone through all of that. Oh, there you are.
Wow. So, Mark, I have a question for you. You might want to tell your listeners, viewers, where they can get this amazing T-shirt like the one I'm wearing.
All right. Well, hold on a second. I'll go into Blair Witch Project mode here. You can get your very own materialissues.com merchandise. I'm going to run the. There it is. It's going to run across the bottom, isn't it? It's at myspreadshop.com. It's materialissues-issues.myspreadshop.com. You can pick out your own colors if you like. I personally like the blue with yellow. It's kind of cool. But it's got, as an homage to Mr. David Bash, the background is very Paisley-like with the Stripes through the material issues. Thank
very
you, John. Thank you.
psychedelic. Yeah, very, very
Plus, it
psychedelic.
advertises materialissues.com, where you can, join us on YouTube, or again, subscribe here on Facebook, because a lot of great shows coming up, and you never know when our good friend Mr. John Borak might pop in and help us out.
We always
Because
appreciate when you do.
we always do. Yes, indeed.
I'm glad. I was actually thinking of wearing the shirt, but I'm glad I didn't, because you did.
Well, there's only one, so if I'm wearing it, you can't.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
We do have to share. We are sharing the one shirt.
I do have a nice kind of psychedelic shirt on, so okay.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to sign off because we're making a hard right here towards where my daughters live. But it's been a wonderful little vacation down here. It's great to see you guys tonight.
Well, you're going
to I'll sign you guys off whenever you say good night. So, John, have a great one. Thanks again for helping out.
Of course, it was a pleasure to be here with David and with you for a little bit. And
thank you, John. Thank you for joining us.
Of course, always a pleasure to meet one of my musical heroes.
I know.
Awesome.
It really was great. I'd never, we'd spoken, of course, a few times online, but I'd never met him in person, as it were. So this was awesome.
So maybe on the 22nd, since you have no one yet, if you don't get somebody, I can come back and play that. What was it called? The bash, the stump, the whatever.
You've been bashed.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, let's do that for 1970. What was the year we were going to do?
78, I believe, is what we agreed upon. But yeah.
Yeah, he might.
You've been bashed, 1978
on that one. So let's try it.
I got bashed the first time, so maybe I can not get bashed again.
You may not. I don't think
you won't get bashed again.
Who?
All right, guys, have a great night. Everybody else, we'll see you next Wednesday. But yeah, Wednesday.
Actually, next Thursday. Next Thursday, Mar.
Next Thursday, right here. Material
Thursday,
Issues. Have a great night. I'm going dark mode. See you guys.
All right. Yeah, you can tune us out. You can.
Oh no, Dave. We should just keep on going.
I have no idea how to end this. So.
Oh, all you got to do. Oh, you mean how to stop? Oh, how to get off the air? You mean?
Yeah, I have no idea. But Mark, I think, is still there. He knows.
We're going to set the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest ever podcast. And wow. Well,
yeah, Mark, if you're listening,
I do want to mention something about Dwight Twilley. I know you mentioned it earlier. Very, very sad. And you guys joke about me telling you that you overuse the word iconic, but if there is ever an iconic power pop musician, it is Mr. Dwight Twilley, and his music will thankfully last forever.
Yeah, he's certainly in the pantheon, John.
He will. Yeah, he will be missed. He was quite a presence on social media, and someone mentioned how always encouraging he was and upbeat and
very nice
the music, and you could tell that he missed his friends, Phil Seymour, Bill Pitcock IV, Leon Russell, Tom Petty, all the people he worked with at Shelter and beyond. So I'd like to think they're having a really cool jam session up there right now.
Yeah. If there's a power pop heaven, they've got a hell of a band.
That's righteous, brother.
Nice.
So I think, David, if you sign this off, Mark will probably just click that button and then it'll be audio.
He will. He just texted me and said that he would.
He texted you and said, "Get the hell off the air. I want to go to bed." It's 9:30 back east, and a man Mark's age needs his rest after a hard day at the park. But no, this has been a lot of fun. It's always
thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, of course. It's always fun to be here and just hang out and talk. And hopefully Andy Hartley and your millions of other listeners enjoyed hearing from Dom Mariani and didn't mind me butting in every now and then.
Oh, I'm sure they didn't. No, it's always great to have you join us, John. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. We will see you next week on Thursday rather than Wednesday with Mo Berg of Material Issues. So again, everyone take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Good night.